But let's bring this now down to something very close to each one of us, our own physical life. Where did it come from? Well, my friends, at some point in history, there was an egg cell from our mother and a sperm cell from our father that came together in union at conception. And as a result of the joining of those two cells, a new life started to form in mother's tummy. Now that new life forming in mother's tummy needed something to nourish it, something to grow on. So what was God's plan for the nourishment of that new life in mother's tummy? Mother was to eat the food and digest the food, and the nutrients were to pass into her blood system and flow to her 100 trillion cells as fuel and nourishment. But now there's a little one growing in her tummy that also needs nourishment, so an umbilical cord is attached to mother's blood system on one end and to the little one on the other end. And as mother eats the food and digests the foods, the nutrients not only pass through her blood system to nourish her physical body, but through the umbilical cord starts nourishing that little one. And it starts to grow and grow and grow and grow until at about 9 months of age, it's fully developed and ready to be introduced into this world. But my friends, when it is introduced, something's still attached. What's it called? The umbilical cord. What has been the purpose of that umbilical cord for the previous 9 months? It's been the life support system for that little one. But what's one of the first things we do after that little one is born? We cut or sever the umbilical cord, don't we? What have we just cut? The life support system for that little one. So what is God's plan for the nourishment of that little one at this point? Mother eats the food and digests the food, and the nutrients pass through her blood system. And as the blood passes through the breasts in the mammary glands, red corpuscles are removed. Antibodies and all kinds of wonderful goodies are added. And that white milk coming out of mother's breast is literally a blood transfusion. Whew. This is exciting. So now, what happens? Well, instinctively, the mother, and I believe this instinct comes from God, by the way, instinctively the mother takes that little one and places it upon her breast. Instinctively, that little one starts suckling that milk coming from mother's breast. And my friends, that milk coming from mother's breast was God's plan for the nourishment of that little one for the next 12 to 18 months. But man thinks he knows more than God. And so rather than placing the child at mother's breast, what do many do today that have a little one? They go to the store and they buy a can of formula. My friends, I challenge you to, next time you're in the store, to pick up a can of formula and try to read the ingredients. You can't even pronounce half the words on it. And anything that comes in a container of any kind is dead. It's devoid of any life force. And yet that's a living, that child has a living organism comprised of living cells designed by God to be nourished with living food. And now we're putting dead food, a dead substitute, into that little child in the place of mother's breast milk. Or maybe we give it soy milk, or maybe we give it pasteurized cow milk. And what happens to that little one? That little child starts to react to the wrong fuel. Just like your automobile that you drove in here today, which was designed to run on a certain grade or octane of gasoline. My friends, you put a low-octane fuel or contaminated fuel in the gas tank of your car, and it will ping and knock. And my friends, when we start putting a low-octane fuel into the bodies of these little ones, that little body starts to ping and knock with things like colic and ear infections and throat infections and swollen glands and allergies and asthmas and diaper rashes. My friend, it's all pinging and knocking. It's all caused by the wrong fuel. And now what do? We've put the wrong fuel in ignorance. The child gets sick, and we take the child to the doctor because that's what we're programmed to do. We take the child to a doctor that has no training in nutrition, hardly at all. The average medical doctor graduating from medical school after 8 years has less than 2 hours of nutritional training. So the medical doctor does not tell the parent to get the child back on the breast. Rather, the medical doctor does what they've been trained to do, and that is, for every symptom there is a drug. And so now they start putting drugs into that little child. And my friends, every drug is liver toxic. Every drug is a poison. And oftentimes that drug will create a new symptom for which additional drugs are necessary. And we start that child almost from the get-go on a very bad downhill slope. And the pinging and knocking in that little child progressively gets louder as it goes through life.